So let's get this started. Wanted to welcome everybody in. Hello, I'm Charlie, the host here at Deepwatch. We're in the marketing department. We're here to talk about the precision mandate, but more importantly, we're talking about the Frontline Report that I hope you guys downloaded as when you registered for this webinar. In 2025, attackers just didn't scale their operations; they refined them and operating with surgical precision and minimal noise. So we're going to talk a little bit about these subjects today and get you more acclimated with them. And I think we're like I said, we're having some really relevant conversations today. With me today, I've got some of Deepwatch's finest, Frank Sclafani. He's the director of cyber enablement, and Ty Metherd, the director of cyber operations. And if you have any questions for either one of them during this webinar, you can drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll answer them as time allows or at the end of today's webinar. I wanted to kind of go over a little bit of the agenda here so you guys can get an idea. There's Frankie and Ty. And then you can kind of understand if, like I said, please download the Frontline Report if you haven't done so. We're going to be talking about a range of topics here, but mostly we're going to kind of stick to this sort of regimen here of what's happening. So with that, I'm going to look at my notes. So we've got this, new reality of 2026, right? And so with the introduction to our report, one of the main themes is this shift from a broad noisy attack to this more surgical, edge to identity campaign. And so with that, Frankie, I'm going to toss you this first question. So, we've been building walls for basically a decade now, and at the edge and we're training these users to be our final line of defense. But according to the report, both of those failed in 2025. So can you tell me, is the perimeter officially dead or is it just redefined?
Yeah, that's a great first question, Charlie. Uh, last year, I think what we saw were threat actors not just targeting edge routers, edge devices. They were trying to circumvent that completely by going after the vulnerable step in the loop, and that's the human. So hence the term the human firewall that we use in the report as well. Um, you know, to your question, is the edge dead? I would say absolutely not. Obviously we've seen many advanced threat actors throughout the past year try and target edge devices. They're going after vulnerable firewalls, VPNs, routing devices, things of that nature. So by no means is the edge completely dead? Do we need to stop worrying about it or making sure that we've got good patch policies and keep it secure? Um, but we are seeing quite a shift, quite a fundamental shift to trying to do their best to circumvent that and go around it. Um, Kai, what do you think? Have you seen the same thing from your side within the SOC as well?
Yeah, I mean, right. We build that wall on the perimeter, and sometimes that wall feels like a chain link fence, though, right? But that is still a perimeter. That's still an edge, even if it's just a chain link fence. But there's still, protection at the edge, and it's not time to just throw our hands up and say that we're not going to deploy those defenses at the edge. We're not going to, educate our staff or users who are soft targets. There's still a relentless focus there to harden that edge. Even if we know that we're under attack and a threat actor is able to access the environment or trick a user to get into the environment, it's not time to entirely change the full playbook. We still want to make it hard for them to get in, right? And protecting that edge and protecting our distributed workforces by educating them on the types of attack scenarios that could occur is still important, Charlie. And I think it's still, very relevant today.
So still having traditional methods, but yet learning and adapting while we're moving along. And then you're sort of talking about some of those tools and tactics and sort of this kind of, we think about the edge under siege, right? And the exploitation of the, very appliances basically designed to protect our networks, VPNs and firewalls and such. All right, Todd, this one's for you. So, the SOC director, when our security appliances like VPNs become primary entry point for nation state actors. So how does that change our daily detection strategy? Are we looking in the right places?
Yeah, we're still looking in the right places, but the change in our detection strategy, Charlie, is really instead of looking at single event detections, we're looking at attack chains. So we're really trying to observe and correlate events together that shouldn't be happening together, right? And we do that through behavioral analytics, identity correlations, looking at command line telemetry. So an everyday event, like an admin completing an activity may not send up a red flag, but an admin accessing the environment after hours and then immediately moving files, to a staging location to exfiltrate is obviously concerning. Um, we still, very much so value authentication logs as high value telemetry. So impossible travel, MFA fatigue, any kind of token accession reuse, new device enrollments, are very concerning. The geolocation of authentications is always concerning as well. And again, we're not looking at just single events, although a single authentication from potentially a nation state that is concerning would send up a red flag. But often these threat actors are using valid account abuse in order to access the network, and that's where those correlations across multiple events become important. And that's really on the detection and response side. But I know even on the incident response side or the response side during a more of an emergency scenario, that's something that Frankie's team also observes.
Yeah, Ty, I think you're quite right. When it comes to detecting attacks against these edge devices like VPNs, some of these devices that don't really have traditional EDR, right? So if we take a look back at the last year, like we mentioned in the report, we saw Avanti Connect secure appliances, Cisco ASAs, Sonic Walls, Oracle EBS servers, all of them being attacked, and none of them have the traditional EDR the defense detections that we'd want. So to your point, I we definitely need to do correlation. We need to look at multiple events happening that could give us indicators that there was an active exploitation. So we are seeing that for sure, particularly Charlie, like you said in your leading question, right? Those nation state actors, groups out of China, on 5337, amongst others. All of those are trying to make sure that they go after these traditionally unmonitored edge devices. How do you detect that? Through a multi-layered logging strategy and correlation strategy, just like Ty said.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's really about, the broad and then the, in really specific and granular stuff. So, and that sort of leads me into my next section. We were talking about a little bit of the, identity crisis or the self-infection. We're not just having attackers breaking in, they're really just kind of being invited in through sophisticated deception. So, if you're a threat actor now and you're using an AI voice clone, and you're a legitimate developer, or you're using legitimate developer tools to bypass even the best EDR, how can we possibly expect a standard employee to be a reliable human firewall anymore? I'm gonna start with you, Frankie.
Yeah, that's very difficult. We're asking a lot of our employees. We're asking them to do their job. We're asking them to learn new AI tools. We're asking them to constantly be vigilant. And they're not security experts. They don't always understand all of the new different phishing techniques and campaigns that are out there. They don't know about ClickFix or some of the other big campaigns that we saw last year, MFA fatigue pushing from scattered spider, things of that nature. So what we have to do is we've got to empower them. We've got to train them, and we've got to give them, the backstop from the technical expertise that they need in order to make sure that they've got a fighting chance. So looking at it from just a training perspective, first off, we've got to make sure that they are aware of these campaigns that are going on. We need to provide them with intelligence and information and updates, preferably in at least a monthly basis. Our security team should be informing our end users about what's going on out there in the world, teach them about MFA fatigue, run them through scenarios, phishing scenarios like we have done traditionally, but even other scenarios that involve some of these new techniques like AI voice clones legitimate developers, fake IT candidates. All of this we need to test and evaluate our employees on so they're aware of what's out there, of what is out there.
Ty, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. The education is key, right? As an organization, I think uh, organizations can get into a lull that I'm not going to be impacted by AI because we don't implement an AI in our workflows or in our business processes, or AI is just not part of the industry that we work in. But the reality is, your employees are using AI. Your employees are exposed to it, in their personal lives. They're potentially using AI-enabled tools on your network. And so understanding that responsible use, the education is key, and really following up on those testing methods, right? I think that's where uh, the heavy lifting is. We can certainly run those scenarios, run those tests, but then following up on the educational piece, are there specific business units, maybe employees who are more susceptible, who have access to data that are either failing or consistently unable to pass those scenarios. That's really that follow-up work that sometimes we don't check the box on. We check the box that we did the phishing scenario, or a scattered spider type of scenario, but we don't really follow up to say, okay, we see this vulnerable business unit. Let's talk through how to really strengthen the education and the awareness around what could potentially be a target.
Yeah, that's great, Ty. And if you do identify that maybe one business unit is slightly more vulnerable to phishing or some type of attack as others, there are a lot of things that we can do from a technical side of things in order to add more compliance, to add more security, to reduce the risk. We'll talk about some of those, I think, probably later on as we get to more detailed sections of the report, but things like reducing session time, things of that nature. So lots of really great things that we can do as a follow-up. So that's a really great point, Ty. Don't just do the test, follow through with the after action.
Yeah, and just speaking for us here at Deepwatch, we're constantly doing training, and I know you guys are always trying to make sure that we're on top of everything. Of course, as employees, we definitely get busy, but there are always stuff to do. But it's very important, the follow-up work, to come back to it. So, and that sort of takes us from one aspect of sort of this sort of the insider threat, but then it kind of leads us into this sort of this extortion evolution, where we're sort of talking about the maturation of ransomware as a service, and data theft enterprises. So in the report, and I know you guys worked extensively in this, and it's a wonderful report. I hope everybody is able to download it. So in the report, we mentioned a transition from sort of mass encryption to precision extortion. For a business leader, does it even matter if their data is encrypted, if it's already been stolen, and is it used as leverage? Either one of you guys, which one feels better talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And encryption is still a threat there. Having your data encrypted and not having a solid backup in order to restore to some type of recovery point for business continuity purposes is absolutely a threat, right? And as we were talking about specific industries earlier that may not see themselves as being a threat to ransomware, again, anybody and everybody who does business is under threat there. So yeah, data encryption due to ransomware is still absolutely a threat, but we're seeing really targeted models, whether that be through the Black Bastard Group being dissolved into clusters like SafePay, Cactus, really precision extortion and exposing sensitive data, selling sensitive data, or just the threat of extorting and selling sensitive data. And now you're talking about a double extortion scenario potentially, right? Threat actors are good at finding ways to make money, and so knowing where your data rests, who has access to your data. We know what threat actors are looking for. We just need to know, where those jewels are on our network, and protect them, back them up, and limit access to them as much as possible. Um,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Frankie.
I was about to say you're quite right. To go back to your original question, Charlie, it really kind of at the end of the day, if you're a business leader, it doesn't matter if your data is encrypted or if it's being exposed as a primary leverage method. Either way, the threat actor is achieving their goal. Obviously, preferably, we wouldn't want our sensitive data exposed on the internet, right? So the only way to prevent that is to make sure that we do have, like to Ty's point, the proper processes in place, right? We've got to make sure that we understand our environment. You can't secure your environment, you can't protect it if you don't understand your shadow IT risk. You've got to understand how new software from software supply chain compromise is going to affect that and allow threat actors to potentially have a foothold into your environment. Like Ty mentioned, some of the ransomware groups that we saw in the past have kind of faded away through their own natural attribution or through law enforcement intervention, but they've evolved into this new double extortion, basically kind of mandate, and it brings its own sets of challenges. But the same cyber hygiene, the same prevention that we've always talked about, are still going to apply as good prevention strategies.
Yeah, that's great. You're always, obviously trying to keep the attackers away, and it's really sort of like, mitigating. You're not. It's kind of like, Michael Jordan, right? You can't really stop them. You can only hope to contain them, right? And so, yeah, I know that you guys are constantly, out there learning, and Ty was just talking about something he read on what GitHub earlier today. So,
Yeah.
go ahead, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It seems every day now, right? The supply chain's under attack, and so we we know that the threat actors will adapt, and we need to adapt as well. Not be afraid of AI-enabled tools, not be afraid of the ways that they can strengthen our human actors. And leverage the same type of technologies and tools that our threat actors are using as well. We can't shy away from them just because we're unfamiliar with them, but really got to harness them, tackle them, and use their strengths, against those adversaries.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys to switch your hats a little bit from your day to day to let's thinking about, broader force forecasting. I hear words like this all the time, agentic AI. You guys were just talking about, supply chain 3.0. So as we look into the battleground of 2026, beyond 2027, and the concept of agentic AI, it really does, it sounds science fiction, but, we saw with the NX breach, it's already happening. How do we defend against adversaries that make decisions at machine speed? And Frankie, I'm gonna throw that one at you.
Thanks, Charlie. Uh, I mean, you've got to fight AI, with AI, and I think most organizations have realized that it's something they need to embrace from a defensive perspective. We have here for sure at Deepwatch for quite some time. This evolution has been a long time coming, and it's been something that we've been on the forefront of for a while, right? So, we have built our own solutions that help us. Basically help the analysts automate, move faster, correlate and bring information in faster, make decisions faster, help our customers contain faster. All of this is extremely important work to be done, and there's a lot more ground and a lot more headway to happen. This is basically the battleground is shifting underneath our feet. It's evolving very quickly. So everything that we're doing is kind of bleeding edge, and it's a really exciting and challenging time to be in the industry. If you've been here for a while, like we all have, things are starting to shake up, right? And it can be fun and exciting, but you just got to be willing to embrace it. So I can turn it over to Ty, and he can maybe talk about some of the AI initiatives that we've used within our SOC to help speed up some of the analyst workflows, if you want, Ty.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Charlie used a perfect example earlier of like Michael Jordan, right? And for those of you that are sports fans, you can remember who might remember those days. If you were a Detroit Pistons fan, You absolutely did not like Michael Jordan, right? He was constantly tearing up your team, sending you home early. But if there was ever the possibility that Michael Jordan could be on your team, as a Pistons fan, you would absolutely have jumped at that. It's kind of the same way, right? We want AI on our team in the SOC. It's a very powerful tool. It really allows us to focus on the deep investigations that require kind of that human knowledge, that human intellect, and it speeds up our processes. The reality is really, we're going from reactive detections to just that proactive work. We're adopting that precision MDR model. It means we have to integrate identity aware detections and that deep visibility into correlating activity across multiple events, across attack chains. Um, and really, the winners are going to be the organizations that kind of automate those defenses. And that's something that Deepwatch has employed, with our active response capabilities, so that, early on in that attack chain, we're able to identify activity, act on that activity through automation, and really limit and mitigate the damage or that can occur within a customer's environment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I'll say is, we've taken the approach that nothing trains artificial intelligence better than human intelligence. So we're not viewing AI currently as at this point in time. And I don't think anyone, honestly, in the industry really should. We're not quite there yet as a full replacement for that human analyst. There is absolutely no substitute for a human that has curiosity and that wants to dig into something and dive deep into, hey, what's going on with this lateral movement alert? What's happening here? There are sometimes things that an AI just won't be able to put the pieces together on. So we're very big on using AI as an augmentation tool for analysts, whether they're Intel analysts, SOC analysts, detection engineers, researchers, reverse engineers. It's a fantastic tool for that, but we are not by any stretch of the imagination taking away the human expertise. There's still absolutely no substitute for that.
So it's kind of like with AI versus AI, fighting fire with fire, but still with the human touch. I think that's probably that speaks to a lot of places that you got to sort of adapt and bend and flex as needed. So, as we think about sort of traditional, MDR models, and we're moving kind of towards this sort of, we keep saying the word precision, if you want to say precision MDR, I want to kind of throw this out to you guys, and you have to put on sort of, I guess, maybe your consultant hat for a second. So if you could give the audience, one, let's say, precision mandate to implement in the next 30 days, using the report as a reference, what would it be? Ty, you go.
This is the mandate that I even took internally with my team early on. Roll back the clock a couple of years ago as we started to see AI pop up more in discussions. And that's is to tackle it, understand it. Whether that be your employees are taking classes, taking trainings, watching seminars, attending talks. Understanding that tool and the way that it can be leveraged, and then diving into potentially uncharted waters if that's not something you're normally comfortable with. I think it absolutely pays off, and it's not something that at this point we can wait around to be comfortable with. It's time to kind of dive in, understand how AI is already being used on your network, and how you can leverage it as a powerful tool for your business as well. Frankie, what about you?
It's hard to boil it down just to one. If I had to pick just one, Charlie, I would say with the we've seen such an uptick recently in critical vulnerabilities. It feels like the pace of them are coming in faster than I've ever seen before in my career. It's unbelievable, right? Because of that, I think AI has been a driver for that. Tools like Anthropic's Mythos and a few other research tools have made it very easy to find vulnerabilities in code. Because of that, I think organizations need to, if they haven't already, just completely forget the traditional patch cycle, once a month patch cycle, and just move towards keeping as many systems and software up to date as possibly as they can, as fastly and critically as they can. We've seen basically the time to exploit compress significantly down to days and hours compared to what it used to be. You used to, see maybe a vulnerability, and then maybe a week or two later, you'd see proof of concept or exploit codes floating around out there. We're talking days or hours now at this point. So as a defender, you've got to be very quick on your patch policy. So that involves two very important things. Number one, knowing your network and knowing your shadow IT and what you have out there. And number two, being able to respond quickly and being able to push those patches and keep your software secure and up to date as possible. So if I had to boil it down to one, I'll give you a 2-for-1, Charlie.
Hey, that works. That works. Excellent, excellent. Well, that's great, and hopefully our audience members will take those to heart because you guys know your stuff better than anyone. So we did get a few questions as we're talking here. So I'm gonna throw out a couple to you to you guys here, and hopefully I can say this right with this little tongue twister here. So this is specifically speaking to edge security. So how do we perform file integrity monitoring on proprietary appliances we don't fully control?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that one first, Ty. Honestly, it really comes down to like your standard basic monitoring, right? So, if you're talking about proprietary tools, software servers, obviously most of those will have security logs. Making sure that those are constantly being logged. You've got all of the fields being parsed. It's all being sent to a SIM that constantly gets reviewed by your SOC team or your MDR or analysts on a pretty much daily regular basis. And then it comes down to that hygiene, right? Your proper user permissions, your RBAC, your access control, your ACLs, things of that nature. Having that really good hygiene and having those monitoring or using a monitoring tool like Flawless or Tripwire or something really goes a long way to make sure that files on those systems that we don't typically have control over don't get modified in ways that we don't want them or expect them to be. Ty,
Yeah, I think
anything?
no, yeah. I mean, as we talked earlier about our upstream detections, certainly, folks who have access to those crown jewels or files, you also want to be detecting what they're doing before they even access those files, right? So if we're thinking of exfiltration, data loss as the later stages in the attack, we want to know what that admin or what that privileged user is doing long before that, as they're moving across the network. uh, you want to be where you want to see where the puck is going to be right before it's there. And so you can really contain that user or contain that host upstream before you're even worrying about the file. And I think that's important as well as we talk about attacks. We know where they want to go. We know who has access to it. What are those users doing, before that becomes a concern?
Awesome. Thank you guys. Okay, next question here. I think this is around identity. So, how does session hijacking bypass the MFA we've worked so hard to deploy? And we had a good discussion on this one yesterday as well. Either one of you.
Yeah, yeah, really the session hijacking. Now you're talking about you're abusing legitimate accounts. So hijacking those sessions and the accounts having access to the resources that they have access to doesn't normally throw up a red flag. You again, this I'll reiterate it again. It's really evaluating what in a chain of events in an attack scenario, what is this account doing that it's not supposed to do? Um, some mitigation efforts around that is rolling credential, or I'm sorry, obviously uh, session timeouts. You're looking at RBAC. Do users have access to resources that they should only have access to? That principle of least privileged. Again, as we've mentioned, geolocations. And those are kind of from a detection standpoint and logging standpoint that we're really looking at. But I know, Frankie's team too, as they consult customers and incident response scenarios, they're able to really help them with kind of the technologies and vendors that help with that as well.
Yeah, no, we see this all the time, Ty. This is becoming session hijacking is becoming really popular. Particularly as we roll out and many organizations roll out multi-factor MFA. Basically the attackers kind of almost have no choice at this point than to go after targeting the session, right? So they can basically, get that cookie, steal the session without needing basically to re-authenticate with MFA. Obviously, we always recommend MFA, particularly FIDO2 compliant, phishing resistant MFA. That's fantastic against preventing man-in-the-middle attacks and initial phishing. But there are still ways that attackers can steal that session even with those MFA protections. Because of that, we always recommend that customers look into implementing continuous access evaluation. Basically, if you have an identity provider, Entra, Workspace, Okta, basically you can use continuous access evaluation controls to terminate a session if a user performs something that's risky or if an anomaly is detected. They do something that's outside of their normal kind of user interactions. So that is a fantastic tool, fantastic strategy to take, and a great recommendation if you're worried about session hijacking, which is very popular with threat actors these days.
I was going to say that question was very relevant. We were just talking about it. So, we've got another one that just came in here. So, another relevant topic here. So, in the Oracle EBS case studies, users noticed system latency before security caught the breach. We were just talking about this. How do you close that gap? Ty, you take it.
Oh, actually, I'll throw that one to Frankie. I know
Yeah,
we had
okay.
yeah, I know we had some customers who were very concerned about that, when that was in the news and on the horizon there. And our threat intelligence team worked very diligently on, kind of informing and consulting those customers. So yeah, I'll let Frankie kind of dig in on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Ty. So yeah, back in late last year, we saw basically Oracle EBS campaigns from a number of different threat actors, the Clop ransomware group, Fin11, a few others as well. But basically, there was a few attacks where they were trying to move basically large amounts of data, and that moving of data created disk I/O and network slowdowns. And the first indication that there was an attack was actually users kind of reporting to IT that they felt things were laggy and things were slowing down. So, it wasn't a SIM alert. It wasn't a classic EDR alert or detection. It was basically like end users reporting a potential issue. So, I mean, this is a fantastic way, to have like a little bit of a symptom that something's wrong. Um, I'll continue on. Like one example that comes to mind from 2 years ago was the XC utility. That's the compression utility that is in SSH. That was compromised in a software supply chain style of attack by a nation state actor. And basically, how it was caught was a researcher at Microsoft noticed like millisecond slowdowns between the old version of SSH and the new version of SSH using the compromised and the uncompromised XEUtil. So if you're a NOC operator or a network engineer and you're not paying attention to these indicators, these either potential slowdowns or potential bugs, and don't take the time to have the curiosity to research them, you can potentially miss some major security incidents as well. So I think that's a great reminder that it's not only security-based logs and detections that may find some evil, malicious things. It might actually just be, your standard telemetry for CPU usage, network usage, things of that nature. So all of that telemetry is important to keep an eye on and investigate as well.
Excellent, excellent. I think this is our last one. And if anybody else has any more questions, feel free to in the Q&A box. So in this, it seems like we might have already answered this one, but this does seem very relevant. So if we're keeping so if we move to a human in the loop model for AI code, will that slow down the developers too much?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one first, just because, we had this concern as we implemented AI into our SOC analyst workflows as well. And I think the best approach is a phased approach, ensuring that there's clear guardrails on where the processes that you want that AI involved in, and any type of deterministic workflows that that AI is involved in as well. And you're constantly making sure that a human operator is exposed to the decisions that the AI is making, to implement a feedback loop to improve that, so that you don't have kind of an escape there that you can't come back from. I mean, we're all familiar that AI can, have hallucinations. It can make bad assumptions. It can, give you information that's just not relevant or not applicable. And I think, just like if it was, again, a new employee and you had your tenured employee sitting there training it, educating it and bringing it up to speed, that's really the phased approach that we've implemented as well. And, as you see outcomes that are more desirable, you expand its capabilities, in those later phases. But really early on, and I think I'll steal a term that Frankie used in a presentation recently. It's an ounce of prevention, right, is worth a pound of cure. You don't want to have to go back and undo the work, because that just doubles your effort. It's better to kind of, it might be a time investment up front to have a human operator reviewing that AI code, but it's worth it, from my perspective. What are your thoughts, Frankie?
Yeah, thanks for quoting me there, Ty. I can't take credit.
Quoting you, quitting.
I can't
Yeah.
take credit for coining that term, but it's a great one, and it's definitely applicable to this scenario, right? We've seen so many places vibe coding these days, using AI to do so much when it comes to creating software. But like you said, they're not perfect. These AI agents hallucinate. They make bad assumptions. They import malicious code. They make the same mistakes that any human developer does, right? So the fact that we are even thinking about removing the human from the loop when it comes to security application testing, or looking at your third-party dependencies or scanning your open source packages for known vulnerabilities. The fact that we've been thinking about taking the human out of that process is a scary thought to me, and I couldn't agree more to Ty. Right? If we can trust AI to do some stuff, but we definitely need to take responsibility for the software that we're putting out there in the world, because we're just going to end up having to patch it and secure it later on anyway if we don't take the time to do it right in the first place. So this is my humble request from the security side of the house to those developers out there. Please, 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 scan your source code for vulnerabilities and take the extra time to really make sure that we're putting secure software out there into the world.
All right, you guys heard it from Frankie here. So, yes,
Yeah.
ounce of prevention. So, well, we don't have any more questions, but I want to really thank you guys for giving us your insights into this, really taking the time to pull this frontline report together. Those are some great takeaways, and I don't really even know if I could sort of like give you a good conclusion on everything, because we talked about so many topics. From humans aren't going anywhere, obviously, but fighting AI with AI, it seems like a big thing. Throwing out the word agentic, and even got it a Michael Jordan reference there. So, I mean, does it get any better than that? So, yeah, I want to thank you guys again. And everybody, if you haven't downloaded the Frontline Report, please do so. It's wealth of knowledge. We are here at Deepwatch 24/7, 365. If you guys need us, you can reach out to Frankie and Ty on their LinkedIn, or just email them. It's their first and last name at deepwatch.com. I think so. Frankie, does the three in there, is that in your email address?
No, no three. I left that off the email.
You left it off the email. So again, if you guys need us, reach out to us. We're happy to help you out. Um, and with that, I think we're going to bring this one to a close. I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend too. So everybody spark up your grills, get out there and enjoy the weather. Even I think it's going to be raining in some places. But anyway, thank you guys again so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you all for joining.